New York Governor Kathy Hochul unveiled her executive budget this week for state lawmakers. Anything in the budget that jumped out to you that would be good for the North Country?
Yeah, a couple of things, and we understand our place in the world. The entirety of the North Country of New York is defined being the 7 counties and Watertown and Plattsburgh is 20% of the state's geography and 2% of its population. We don't have a big impact on the big issues, the major controversial issues. So we tend not to go to those. We tend to be very specific in our advocacy and our reaction to things, to region-specific things. And that's what we've commented on. We always look for those things in every budget. And there are some things that we like about her proposed budget. One is a continued large-scale capital investment in the facilities at ORDA. Another $80 million for capital investments. There had been fears, or you go back years ago, there would be spurts of investment around some international event. Oh, we got to update things. Then we get past the event and the capital spending goes back down. Governor Hochul understands you got to sustain capital investment, so you're always ready. You're keeping everything up and not letting things run down, so you got to bring them back, 10 or 15 years from now. So we appreciate that. Very important to the North Country, very important to the state and our special place in international sports. And then our employers continue to tell us they're concerned about workforce availability. And 2 of the subsets of that are increasingly affordable housing, particularly for working people, particularly a crisis in the Adirondacks. It's already a challenge here in the Plattsburgh area, crisis to the west of us, and childcare, affordable and sufficient access to childcare. She's addressing both. She did last year. She's once again doing that. We welcome that. And then we also welcome very much her enthusiastic embrace of the new capital plan for the MTA, which is very important to our production of transportation equipment. Folks think MTA funding, well, that's a New York City thing. Well, a lot of it stays in New York City in terms of facilities on the ground and actual operation of the transit systems. But where do the transit systems come from? They come from upstate New York. We make them. So a lot of that funding goes to New York and it comes right back up to us.
There may be a battle in Albany this year over the funding for the MTA. They're still trying to fund their 5-year capital plan, $60-some billion, asking the state for about half of that money. So it's likely there will be a battle over funding the MTA. But as you mentioned, for the North Country, a key interest because so many of the buses and subway cars are made here.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the MTA, the legislature is going to be supportive. They're going to approve the capital plan. They're going to figure out how to fund it. There'll be some debate over elements of how to fund it. Congestion pricing actually has strong support in the state legislature and the Assembly and Senate. So the opposition to that is not likely to see any shift in terms of what the state legislature does.
Speaking of transit buses, Nova Bus is planning to phase down its operations here in Plattsburgh this year. In the past few months, another Quebec bus manufacturer, Microbird, announced it intends to take over the Nova Bus assembly plant in Plattsburgh and build school buses and smaller commuter buses. Not the big mass transit buses that Nova Bus builds, but smaller fleets, and they plan to hire up to 350 workers. This news coming just before Thanksgiving,
yeah.
and great news that someone's going to step right in and take control of that assembly plant.
Yeah, it's a great story. I know people realize it, but if they think about it this way, they'll start to say, aha, I hadn't thought about that way. This almost never happens. That you have a major manufacturer in whatever sector it might be, paper, or pharmaceuticals, or buses, and for whatever reason announces it's closing that operation. The first thing you do as an economic developer is you make a maximum effort to try to get some kind of like operation in there, take advantage of the skills and the kind of facility and continue the kind of business that your area has been in and knows how to conduct. But 9 times out of 10, you end up at the end not being able to pull that off. The lights turn off, the locks get locked, and you try to find some new use for the facility that may take years to happen. Here we pulled it off, and we pulled it off for several very good reasons that relate to our steady strategy over 25 years. Quebec, Quebec, Quebec. It is not a coincidence that it's a Quebec company that once again sees the advantages of putting their planned new U.S. production operation close to them, close to the border. Secondly, we've been talking so much about the importance of clustering and having more than 40 transportation equipment manufacturers in our region. Clusters do draw other companies like companies because they want to be in a place where the culture, the workforce skills, the training supports, the vendor and supply chains are already kind of there for them because other companies are there. That worked to our advantage. The workforce support system like CV Tech and IAM, where we brought those very much into the picture and are already starting to organize training programs with Microbird. That worked to our advantage. And then the way we have successfully generated political relationships that we can call upon to support us way above our weight here in the North Country when we need them. There were two in particular that I need to cite. One is Governor Hochul. I don't care what anybody may think about this or that she does, or I disagree with her on this, or I don't like her on that. She has been an absolute rock star on this project. We hope to really recognize her when she's able to come up here. We went to her, we said, this is a priority, we're going to need your support several steps along the way. She threw her team behind it as her #1 priority in the region. She reached out to the CEO of Volvo Group in Sweden for us at a critical time and made sure we got them on track in terms of their approach with us in the marketing effort. Chuck Schumer did exactly the same thing for us twice. In fact, he shared in private a transcript of his conversation with the CEO of Volvo Group. And I can tell you, if I had written it myself, it wouldn't have been better. So he had our interests in heart. So those 4 elements, and then add the teamwork that we have here on the ground with the Chamber, the IDA, the Town of Plattsburgh, and TDC. That's what made that exceptional deal happen.